Parents of Reddit, what is the most embarrassing thing your toddler said out loud in public? My oldest daughter and I used to run away from my wife when we went shopping. One time, we got particularly far away and I asked her, "What do you want to do now that mom can't stop us?" She exclaimed loudly, "Near others, we can punch a stranger." Carrying my daughter back from the bathroom through a crowded hipster brunch spot while she shouted he farted at every single table. In case there was any confusion, she was also pointing at my face. My son went through a phase where he would announce when he had a boner. Now he's in a phase where he constantly rubs, pinches his nipples. He will not stop. 4-year-old son was misbehaving in a store, and I told him if he didn't control himself we were going to leave. He escalated, and I picked him up and carried him through the entire store. He was surprisingly putting up little fight. As we passed the checkout lanes he loudly says, "Hey mister, put me down." I didn't hesitate, didn't make eye contact with anyone, just turned beet red and kept marching out the door. My son came home from kindergarten with his backpack full of canned food. When pressed about the issue he confidently stated that he had told the teacher he was hungry and we didn't have any food at home. They had sent him home with the donations for those in need. We got him to return the food the next day. It's a funny story we tell now, but talk about embarrassed. My daughter was with me in a crowded dressing room and complimented me on my nice nipples. I could hear laughter from the other stalls. Not a parent, but when my family and I were on vacation in Yellowstone, Custer's Last Stand, there was a Native American man dressed as a warrior doing a photo shoot. My little brother, about 3 at the time, yells out loud, "Dad, there's still one left." The man was a good sport and started laughing. Even got a picture with him later in the day. So my younger brother was 5-6 years old. My dad was coaching my basketball team, was in 7th grade, and my brother came along to hang out at the practice. Now my brother has Asperger's, so of course at that age social awareness is non-existent. There are a few black kids on the team and my brother was learning about Martin Luther King Jr. as it was around the time of the holiday. So his brain is processing. During the practice my brother is standing under the basket as we're doing layup lines. All of a sudden, as one of the black kids goes past him, my brother goes, "Are you an African American?" And my friend chuckles and goes, yeah," and my brother with a completely dead serious face and tone just goes, "I knew it." Whole team was rolling on the floor laughing. Edit, Woza. I did not expect all of this when I posted this story. I told my parents this and my dad added, as I had forgotten, that when this happened my dad exclaimed, "Nothing gets past my boy." For those wondering, my brother is now 23, accepting of all races and also writes and plays for a pretty awesome band. And thank you anonymous Redditors for the silver and gold. My first gold. What a time to be alive. At a fairly nice restaurant my brother was teasing my daughter, and my daughter screamed at him to stop and threatened to call him the N-word. I nannied for kids for a summer. One time, as soon as the mom came home, the daughter ran to the mom and said, "Jen said the C-word today." I was beyond mortified until the mom and I talked for a second and I realized that they didn't say crap around the kids. The mom and I laughed it off once we realized. My nephews. "Joe, you said the F-word." "No I didn't." "Yes you did. You're supposed to say pass gas." My wife had my 3-year-old at the park one day. She decided to pick up some litter to make the park look nicer, so she was throwing away pop bottles, chip bags etc., and he wanted to help. He stoops to pick up some cigarette butts and my wife says, "Leave those to mommy." She wasn't going to pick them up but didn't want him to touch them either. A few minutes later he has gone to play. He tells another mom, "I'm finding cigarettes for mommy." My wife was so embarrassed and said she got the dirtiest looks from nearby parents who heard this. I was in Costco and my son, who was about 5 at the time, ran up to me, grabbed my hand and started pulling me towards the next aisle. Dad, look. Real ninjas. Whilst pointing at 2 women in full burqas. When I had a mohawk, a little boy once pointed to me and said, "Dinosaur." That was the best compliment I've ever received. I played Hitman 2 a lot, sometimes with my 3-year-old daughter watching. We were at the grocery store recently and there was an older gentleman who looked like he had just come out of a church service. He was all dressed up and shiny bald to boot. My daughter yells out, "Look Dad! It's a hitman." I was with a group of friends and was asked if I drink. I said I don't really, and my daughter said, "But Mom, you drink all the time." She had no idea the difference between drinking alcohol and drinking everything else. My mom always drank a can of Mountain Dew in the mornings when she dropped me off for school. I told all of her friends that she loves to drink and drive, and that she was very good at it. After watching 101 Dalmatians the day before, I was grocery shopping with my daughter. We crossed paths with an old lady in a somewhat dirty church suit and tons of makeup with sloppy red lipstick. My daughter points at her and says, "Daddy, that's a bad lady." The lady did kind of look like Cruella de Vil. My mother always loved to remind me that when I was about 3-4 we were at KFC eating and a fat guy with a beard came in. I thought he was Colonel Sanders because I was 3 and stupid. I couldn't actually say Colonel Sanders, so I just yelled, "Look Mom, the fat man," a bunch of times. Took my 3-year-old to Disney World. Of course, after about an hour in the park, both I and the offspring have to go to the bathroom. We head off to one of the main bathrooms right next to the castle. I let the boy go first. He performed a nice quick dump complete with the customary good job from me as we were still reinforcing the potty training mantras. Then I of course sit down and perform my own glorious number 2 complete with the nice squeaky door fart which had the offspring in hysterics. At this point the child starts saying in a voice that can only be described as booming, "Good job Daddy. You're the best pooper I know." This of course led to chuckles from the long line of stalls populated by other fathers. The chuckles ended up turning into outright laughter. I was so proud of my pooping abilities. Well, I'm somewhat shameless, so I clean up and go wash my hands to find that I'm now getting the nods of approval from everyone in the can who heard the interchange. I was the best pooper at Disney World that day. And internally embarrassed and entertained at the same time. Not me but my midwife. Pregnant with second child, 3-year-old daughter asks why Mummy's belly is so big. She's told there's a baby in there. She turns to Daddy and asks, "Do you have a baby in there too?" Dad replies gently, "No, I'm just fat." A few days later in the checkout line and there's a very large lady behind them in the line. The little girl asks the lady, "Do you have a baby in your tummy like my mummy?" The lady is kind and just says no she doesn't, to which the girl responds, "Oh, just fat then? That's not even roasting, that's just incineration." My son was 2 and thought every black man was his dad. He was away for the military a while, so when we were at Boston Market he called another random stranger Daddy. And ran to him and hugged him. Ha, the guy actually picked him up and said, "I'm not your dad but hey buddy." I was mortified but couldn't stop laughing. When my sister was an angsty toddler, doing any shopping with her was a pain. If she didn't get what she wanted she would yell, "Die, die, die." And people would look at us like we're some kind of psychopaths. Phonetically, die is how you say give in Russian, our home language. My mom loves to tell this story. We were at Catholic Mass. I was 2-3 years old. They ring the altar bell in Mass at some point. They ring it, the church is dead quiet, and I screamed telephone. My child isn't old enough to talk yet, but when I was little and we were on holiday my dad used to get me to say I was younger than I was so we could get into theme parks cheaper. When we were on our way back, the gentleman at passport control asked me how old I was and I turned to my dad and said, "How old am I today Daddy?" After my sister turned 3, my parents would still say she was 2 to get her in for free at certain places. Apparently, when they did this at a water park I stood behind them and told the sales girl that my sister was 3 and my mom was lying. She let my sister in for free anyways, but my mom and older sister were hella embarrassed. During a private Remembrance Day, Armistice Day, ceremony with veterans, my 3-year-old soiled her diaper. I changed her in the back room and when we came out, it was the moment of silence. She slammed the door and yelled to all the vets, "I just had a big poo. And it had peanuts in it." Thank you and subscribe.